There is a woman sitting in a quiet room tonight, scrolling through her phone, seeing the smiling faces of others, groups of friends laughing, families celebrating, but she is alone. No one texts her just to check in. No one invites her out for coffee. No one notices when she's struggling. Maybe you know her. Maybe you are her. She gets up every morning and does what she's supposed to do. Goes to work, takes care of her responsibilities, puts on a brave face, but deep inside, there's a hollow space where companionship should be. She has no friends to call in times of trouble, no one to share her victories, no one to wipe away her tears when life becomes too much to bear. And the world tells her, you're not enough, you're unworthy, you're invisible. But I'm here to tell you something different today. You are not forgotten. You are not unwanted. You were never meant to walk this road alone. There is a love so deep, so powerful, that even in your most isolated moments, you are seen, you are cherished, and you are called by name. Loneliness is not the end of your story. But the question is, are you ready to take the first step towards something greater? Because by the end of this message, I want you to know one thing. You don't have to live like this anymore. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could change your life. The loneliness epidemic is one of the greatest silent struggles of our time. It moves through crowded streets, across social media feeds, and even within the walls of our own homes. A woman with no friends experiences this in ways that cut deeper than most can see. She wakes up in the morning and goes about her day, but there is no one waiting to hear her voice, no one looking forward to her company. She walks into a room full of people, yet she feels unseen. She might sit in an office surrounded by co-workers, exchanging polite words, but none of those conversations ever go beyond the surface. At night, she comes home to an empty space, perhaps a quiet apartment where the silence is almost deafening. She turns on the television just to hear another human voice, scrolls through her phone to see what others are doing, but the notifications never light up with an invitation just for her. She watches others celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, and milestones, while she remains a spectator to the warmth she longs for. Society rarely acknowledges the weight of this burden. People assume that if someone is alone, it must be by choice. They think, she must not like people. She must be difficult. She must have done something to push others away. But often the truth is much simpler and more painful. She has been overlooked, forgotten, or perhaps even wounded by past relationships that have made her afraid to trust again. The world keeps moving forward, and she wonders if anyone would even notice if she disappeared. Loneliness is not just a feeling. It is a deep and aching void that affects the heart, the mind, and even the body. Studies have shown that chronic loneliness can lead to depression, anxiety, and even physical health problems. The human soul was never meant to exist in isolation. We are designed for connection, for friendship, for love. And yet, a woman with no friends begins to believe the lie that she is somehow different, somehow unworthy of those things. She may have tried before. She may have reached out, extended kindness, made the effort, only to be met with rejection or indifference. After enough of those moments, she stops trying. She tells herself it's easier to be alone than to feel the sting of being unwanted. She convinces herself that this is simply how life is meant to be. But deep down, late at night when no one is watching, she feels the weight of it. She wonders if there is any way out, if there is any hope for something more. The hidden pain of a woman with no friends is something few people notice, yet it is one of the heaviest burdens a person can carry. She moves through life with a quiet strength, but beneath the surface, there is an emptiness that no one seems to recognize. She laughs when she's supposed to, nods when others speak, and even offers words of encouragement. But when the conversation ends, she is left with a silence that feels louder than any crowd ever could. She has mastered the art of pretending. She knows how to answer the question, "How are you?" with just enough enthusiasm to convince others she's fine. She knows how to keep herself busy so that she doesn't have to sit alone with her thoughts. She has taught herself to push aside the ache, to ignore the deep longing for connection, and to pretend that the loneliness doesn't affect her. But when the distractions fade, when the day is over and there's no one left to talk to, the pain sets in like a weight pressing down on her chest. She watches friendships from a distance, seeing the way others lean on each other, the way they laugh over inside jokes, the way they share life's moments, both big and small. She wishes for that, not because she wants attention, but because she simply wants to belong. She longs for someone to remember her birthday, to check in on her when she's feeling low, to invite her into their world without her having to ask. But that call never comes. That text never arrives. And once again, she is left to convince herself that she is okay. The world doesn't see her pain because it is not loud or obvious. It is not the kind of suffering that draws immediate sympathy. It is the quiet kind, the kind that lingers beneath the surface, unnoticed by most. She wonders if anyone would truly care if they knew how she felt. She wonders if she should even say anything at all. But the thought of being vulnerable, of admitting the depth of her loneliness, terrifies her more than the loneliness itself. So she keeps moving forward, wearing a mask of strength, telling herself that she is fine. But deep inside, she knows the truth. She is tired of being strong. She is tired of carrying this weight alone, and more than anything, she is tired of feeling invisible in a world that seems to move on without her. The impact on the soul of a woman with no friends is something that cannot be measured in mere words. Loneliness does not just exist on the surface. It seeps deep into the very core of a person, shaping the way she sees herself and the world around her. At first, she may not even recognize the changes happening within her. She tells herself that she is simply independent, that she doesn't need anyone, that she is strong enough to handle life on her own. But over time, the isolation begins to wear her down, not just emotionally, but spiritually. She begins to question her worth. If she were truly valuable, if she truly had something special to offer, wouldn't someone have noticed by now? Wouldn't someone have reached out, invited her in, made space for her in their life? She wonders what it is about her that makes people keep their distance. Maybe she's not interesting enough. Maybe she's too quiet, too different, too much or not enough. The doubts begin to build, whispering lies that she slowly starts to believe. Her soul, once filled with hope and dreams of connection, begins to shrink under the weight of these thoughts. The joy she once felt in small everyday moments starts to fade. She no longer looks forward to holidays because they only serve as a reminder of who she doesn't have. She dreads weekends, knowing that while others are out enjoying life, she will be alone again. Even the simplest pleasures, watching a sunset, drinking a warm cup of coffee, lose their meaning when there is no one to share them with. And then the deeper wounds begin to form. She starts to withdraw, not just from people, but from life itself. She stops trying to connect, stops putting herself in situations where rejection could happen again. If no one is going to notice her absence, why bother showing up? She becomes a shadow in her own world, present but unseen, alive but not truly living. This kind of loneliness doesn't just affect the heart. It touches the soul. It creates an ache that no amount of distractions can fully erase. She may try to fill the void with work, entertainment, or even self-improvement, but none of it can replace the simple, irreplaceable gift of human connection. The soul was never meant to be isolated, never meant to exist in a vacuum. And yet, she finds herself wondering if this is simply her fate, if she was meant to walk through life unseen, unheard, and unloved. The search for meaning becomes a silent journey for a woman with no friends. She wakes up every morning with the same unanswered question: why am I here? She watches the world around her, sees people laughing, sharing moments, building relationships, and she wonders why that kind of life seems just out of reach for her. She is not bitter, at least not at first. She simply tries to understand. She looks for purpose in her work, pouring herself into tasks and responsibilities, hoping that achievement will fill the empty spaces in her heart. She tells herself that if she works hard enough, if she succeeds enough, she will find fulfillment. But at the end of the day, when the work is done and the silence returns, the emptiness is still there. She thought success would bring her satisfaction. But she realizes that purpose is more than just what you do. It's about who you share life with. So she turns to distraction, filling her time with anything that can keep her mind from wandering to the loneliness that lingers in the background. She scrolls through social media, losing herself in the lives of others, comparing her reality to their carefully curated highlights. She watches movies, reads books, and escapes into fictional worlds where connection is easy, where friendships are strong, where no one is left behind. But when the screen turns black, when the last page is turned, she is right back where she started. She tries to convince herself that she doesn't need people, that independence is a sign of strength. She tells herself that friendships are overrated, that relationships are too complicated, that solitude is a blessing in disguise. But deep down, in the quietest parts of her heart, she knows she was made for more. She was made for laughter that echoes in a room full of people who love her. She was made for conversations that go beyond small talk, for moments where someone looks at her and truly sees her. She was made for the kind of life where she doesn't have to question whether she matters. But she doesn't know where to begin. How does she break free from this cycle? How does she step out of the loneliness that has become so familiar? The search for meaning has led her here, to a crossroads where she must decide whether to continue existing in isolation or to take a step toward something greater. She doesn't have the answers yet, but she knows one thing for certain. She cannot stay in this place forever. Something has to change. The hope beyond isolation is not always easy to see for a woman with no friends. After years of feeling unnoticed, unheard, and unimportant, she has learned to accept loneliness as her reality. She has built walls around her heart, not out of hatred for people, but out of exhaustion from trying. She tells herself that this is just how life is. Some people are meant to have deep friendships, and others are meant to walk alone. But what if that isn't true? What if the loneliness she feels is not the end of her story, but only a chapter? At first, she resists the idea of hope. It feels dangerous to believe that something could change because disappointment has always followed when she tried before. She remembers the times she reached out only to be met with indifference. She recalls the friendships that faded, the invitations that never came, the moments she stood on the outside looking in. Hope seems like a cruel joke, something meant for other people, but not for her. And yet, something deep inside whispers that there has to be more. Hope begins as a small flicker, barely noticeable, but impossible to ignore. It comes in unexpected ways. A kind word from a stranger, a moment of kindness from a coworker, a memory of a time when she wasn't so alone. She starts to wonder, what if I am not as forgotten as I think I am? The thought scares her because believing in hope means taking a risk. It means stepping out of the comfort of isolation, as painful as it is, and daring to try again. She does not need 100 friends. She does not need a packed social calendar or constant attention. What she needs is connection, genuine, meaningful connection with just one or two people who truly see her. She begins to understand that friendship is not always about waiting for others to find her, but about being willing to open herself up, even when it feels uncomfortable. She starts small, perhaps by saying yes when someone invites her out, by making eye contact instead of looking away, by choosing to believe that she is worthy of companionship. The path out of loneliness is not instant. It is a slow, steady process of unlearning the lies she has believed about herself. But every step forward, no matter how small, is proof that she is moving towards something greater. Hope is not just an idea. It is the foundation for a new beginning. One where she no longer has to carry the weight of isolation alone. A new beginning is not something that happens overnight for a woman who has spent years in loneliness. She has carried the weight of isolation for so long that it feels like a part of her identity. She has learned to expect silence, to prepare for rejection, to assume that she is invisible. But what if that could change? What if the life she has always longed for, a life filled with connection, love, and purpose, was still possible? At first, the idea of starting fresh feels overwhelming. The thought of stepping out of the familiar loneliness and into something new brings fear. What if she tries and fails? What if she reaches out and is ignored again? What if she allows herself to hope only to be disappointed? These thoughts hold her back, whispering that it is safer to stay where she is, to avoid the risk of more pain. But deep down, something inside her refuses to accept that this is all there is to life. A new beginning does not mean forgetting the past, but it does mean refusing to let it define the future. It means choosing to believe that she is worthy of love and friendship. It means allowing herself to be seen even when vulnerability feels uncomfortable. It means replacing the lies she has believed. I am unlovable. I am not enough. I will always be alone, with the truth that has always been there. She was created for connection. She was never meant to walk through life alone. She starts with small steps. She reaches out to an old acquaintance. She says yes to an invitation she would have once ignored. She speaks up in conversations instead of staying silent. She allows herself to believe that someone somewhere cares. And as she takes these steps, she realizes something. Change is possible. The world has not shut her out. She is not destined for loneliness. There are people who will see her, who will value her, who will walk beside her. The journey is not perfect. There will still be moments of doubt, still days when loneliness tries to creep back in. But the difference now is that she knows the truth. She knows that isolation is not her destiny. She knows that a new beginning is not just a dream, it is a choice. And every day she chooses to step forward, to embrace the possibility of love, and to believe that she is worthy of the life she has always wanted. A woman with no friends may feel as though she is forgotten, as though the world moves on without noticing her absence. She may have spent years believing that loneliness is simply her fate, that she is somehow different, unworthy, or destined to walk alone. But the truth is, she was never meant to live this way. Loneliness is not a life sentence. It is not a reflection of her worth. It is not the final chapter of her story. No matter how deep the isolation has been, no matter how many times she has felt unseen, there is still hope. There is still a way forward. The pain she has carried does not have to define her. The doubts that whisper that she is not enough are lies that she can leave behind. The fear of rejection, though real, does not have to control her future. There is a new beginning waiting for her, a life where she is known, where she is valued, where she belongs. But it starts with a choice. She must choose to believe that she is worthy of love. She must choose to take a step, even when fear tells her to stay where she is. She must choose to hope, even when her past tells her not to. Because the moment she decides to step out of the darkness of isolation and into the light of possibility, everything begins to change. If you have ever felt like this woman, if you have ever known the ache of loneliness, hear this: you are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are deeply valued, and your story is far from over. The life you long for is still within reach. The love you seek is still possible. And today can be the day you take the first step towards something greater. The question is, will you take it?